The Starkville Board of Alderman is brought to you by Oktibbeha County Hospital, devoted to your health.
The passage of time. We have shared your joy at the birth of your children, and proudly we have watched them grow. We've taken care of your healthcare needs during the good times and the not so good. Your parents and grandparents have depended upon us. Together we have shared the struggles and the wonders of life. At Oktibbeha County Hospital, we are celebrating 30 years of being your lifelong choice in healthcare.
June 21st, 2005, and final scheduled meeting of this incumbent board and mayor is called to order. We welcome all who have an interest in these proceedings and ask that in just a moment we stand together and bow for a moment of silent invocation as each of us calls on God in his own way to bless not only this meeting but our community and our world. And then that we remain standing for our patriotic recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. We will stand together for prayer. Amen. I would ask that you consider not only the official recommended agenda as printed, but also a printed amendment, which of course should read June 21st, 2005, and ask that certain amendments be made. One, Alderman Frank Davis to speak regarding the outgoing administration. Numeral 5.3. Starkville in motion to make a presentation on the bicycle path for University Drive. Item 4, Ms. Marie Day to discuss drainage ditch adjacent to Paper Street. And then under departmental business, public services, delete items 2 and 3, and request approval for the city to pay employee expenses related to maintaining commercial driver's license as required by the city, and request approval of salary adjustments related to the commencement of the anniversary compensation program on October 2nd, 2003. Under the mayor's office, to delete item 8, discussion of appointment to the municipal election commission. I believe that is a matter for the succeeding board and administration. And then under executive session, we need to briefly discuss the discussion of possible property disposition. So I would ask for approval of the proposed agenda with these amendments.
So moved.
Second. Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then we will then proceed with the agenda as approved. Concerning the approval of minutes, you have May 17, 2005 minutes. Are these the only minutes that are currently available for approval, Madam Clerk?
Those are ones that are in the packet. The others are at your location.
All right. And the others being what dates?
May 3rd, May 17th, June 7th, and 9th.
Very important, of course, that these minutes be approved prior to the end of this term, and we need to approve the minutes to the full extent possible prior to the end of this month, and preferably tonight, if it's the will of the board. So what's the board's wishes concerning the approval of these minutes?
May I have reviewed and made suggestions to the May 17th minutes only. And I would start off with a motion of approving the minutes of the May 17th meeting.
I second that.
Motion second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that's approved. Now, these other minutes, of course, are short notice. They're options that are open to you. If you choose, you may approve them subject to any necessary corrections, or it's possible that you may want to come back on the last day of the month and clear up this and any other matters that need to be considered before the end of the term.
Mayor, why don't we consider those right after we take a break? I would suggest we do that. I don't want another meeting.
So
Not-
at whatever, you mean at whatever time we may come to a break?
Yes, sir. That's what I would suggest.
Any other suggestions?
I'm in favor of that also.
Seems to be the consensus of the board, so we will at least delay that till later in the meeting.
Mr. Mayor, we're talking about two sets of minutes that we received on the table tonight
Yes.
and have not read.
3 cents.
3 sets.
I don't think we can read that in a 5-minute recess.
Mr. Mayor, this is not a major issue. We got a lot of things on the agenda. If the other members want to have time to read the minutes, I suggest that we recess until Thursday, June 30th at 5:30. That's what we want to do, so we don't have to spend a lot of time on this. We either can do it tonight or just recess, whichever the board wants to do.
And by the way, there is no requirement that minutes have to be approved by the end of this June.
I feel sure we'll have a break later in the meeting, so immediately following that break, I'll ask the board to make its decision concerning these minutes. Under general comments, Alderman Perkins had asked to make a statement with regard to certain recent decision about wellness center membership for firefighters. And I think that Mr. Doug Devlin, our public services superintendent, public services director, and Chief Grantham may have a statement that they'd like to make at this time. Would you come forward, please, gentlemen?
Mr. Mayor, if they're coming, I'm going to be very brief on this. And let me just say to this honorable mayor, to my colleagues and these department heads, and they're coming on down, and any other department head. The reason I put this matter on the agenda is that I saw a proposed agenda on Friday midday whereby the Public Services Department had initially requested for similar benefits to be paid for public services employees. And I knew then that as an alderman, I could not support making this a city-wide application for the fire department, public services, or other department. Chiefly, you know, I supported this at the meeting on June 9th, 2005, and I certainly support your leadership. So I just wanted to put this on the agenda for the board's discussion, because I just want the board to just make a policy statement, whatever the board decides to do, and I'm satisfied with it, but I just can't be in a position of supporting for wellness center benefits for fire and then other departments, because, you know, we do benefit for one department, we don't have to do it for others. So I just wanted to put that out there tonight and see what other aldermen may have to say about this. So whatever's the will of the mayor and the board, I'm willing to be governed by that, but I just want to make sure that we discuss that. And I see that Mr. Devlin has removed it from the agenda, but likewise, he's asking for us to provide benefits for those who have to be commercial driver's license requirements. So we just need to be kind of careful how we're going to proceed with this. So whatever the board wants to do, I'll be satisfied with it, but I just thought it merited some discussion.
I think Chief Grantham and And Director Devlin can shed some light on this. So which of you gentlemen would like to speak first?
I'll go first. I think the meeting where this was approved was a Thursday night, if I believe, and I was in a hurry to get out of town. I was gone for a week, and really didn't have a chance to talk to Chief Grantham about what it was all about that he was requesting. And I had the same perception that you did, Mr. Perkins, that, you know, this was a fringe benefit. And if extended to one department, it should obviously be administered citywide. But we had a very productive staff meeting this morning, in which I have a better understanding of Chief Grantham's objective or the scope of his request. And it turned out that this request is for compensation or reimbursement or providing support to employees for certain levels of performance or certifications that they have to maintain to keep their jobs that are required by the city. So that scope of request was somewhat different than mine. The discussion went on further, and then once we got clear what the scope of the request was, we realized that there's employees in my department who are required to absorb expenses for maintaining commercial driver's license. So to keep it consistent in scope, I felt it best to withdraw my request and then revise it. So, you know, that particular type of benefit would be consistent with the one that I'm requesting now. As we talked this morning on staff, and I laid it in front of you, and those tabs, if you'll grab the next to the last one, and I talked with Attorney Kirby about this, the one that's the next to the last one, you'll see that it's highlighted in front of you under item 10.3, health and fitness. It says the fire department shall establish and provide a health and fitness program that meets the requirements of NFPA 1583 standard on health-related fitness programs for firefighters to enable members to develop and maintain an appropriate level of fitness to safely perform their assigned functions. And not only does the city require firefighters to maintain physical fitness for promotion and to maintain their job, but also the state of Mississippi, through state statute, that we maintain CPAC, which is a physical agility test for new firefighters, and also the State Fire Academy, and also NFPA standards, several of them that I've listed there for you. So this never was intended as a benefit. It was intended as a requirement that we asked or mandate our firefighters to do. Every day that they're on duty, we mandate that they have 1 hour of physical fitness, minimum of cardio and strength, and then we mandate that they do weightlifting for strength. And it's all because of job performance and what is required of them in a rescue situation of pulling people out or dragging hose and those sort of things. So from my end of it, it never was intended as far as a employee benefit.
Are we satisfied with this item now? Alderman Perkins, do you have anything further you want to say? Thank you, gentlemen. Recognize Mayor Pro Tem Frank Davis.
I think that what I'll say tonight, also my colleagues on the board will also agree with. 4 years and 9 months have gone by since I was elected to serve the citizens of Starkville as an alderman. The following comments are thoughts of mine as I prepare for my last board meeting. During these years, I've learned an awful lot about how a city government functions to serve its citizens. Perhaps the most significant thing that comes to mind is my appreciation of all the people that it takes for a city to function properly, from the governing body, mayor and board, to the many employees of the various departments, to the many citizens who serve on boards and commissions. Thanks are in order to express my appreciation to the many wonderful people who work so diligently for us, the citizens. First, I want to thank Mayor Rutledge and my fellow board members for the many hours of hard work that they put in to see that our city moves forward in positive ways. It has been my pleasure to have worked alongside of each of you. Secondly, I want to thank our City Attorney, Catherine Kirby, for all of her outstanding legal assistance and good advice. One point that I will long remember is the manner in which she has kept us abreast, and I got information today about legal matters, but she has kept us abreast of the many legal matters in which the city gets involved with, and we do appreciate it. Thirdly, I want to thank all the men and women who work daily, 24 hours per day, 7 days a week, 365 days per year is what our civil servants in the city work to ensure that our city operates in a manner that best serves our citizens. It has certainly been my pleasure to have worked and interacted with such outstanding city department heads, superintendents, and employees. Fourthly, I want to thank all the citizens of this city who have stepped forward and offered their time and efforts without monetary compensation to work on boards and commissions. To be honest, I never realized that there were so many boards and commissions. Here is a list of them: Parks and Recreation Commission, Planning and Zoning Commission, Election Commission, Board of Adjustments, Oktibbeha County Library Board, Oktibbeha County Museum Board, Bryan Field Airport Board, and the Starkville Public School Board. Please forgive me if I have left any out. Lastly, I want to thank my wife, Carol, my daughter, Elizabeth, and her husband, Stephen, for supporting me during these years. I never would have thought that Carol would have attended almost all of our Tuesday night board meetings. I must admit that our meetings are sometimes long and, to be honest, rather boring. In closing, I want to comment on a few projects during my tenure on the board that stand out in my mind as significant to the advancements of our city. Perhaps the most significant is the Main Street project, where a truly renaissance of this area is happening as I speak. The heart of our city is now healthy, beautiful, and becoming economically viable again. I remember the tough process that we as a board went through to obtain the site of the Northwest Electrical Substation on now Highway 182. Today, the substation is a reality, providing electricity to that portion of our city, and is non-noticeable to most people passing by. See, we were thinking curb appeal even back just before this administration took office. Thanks to the mayor and board, the city has played a very significant role in the development of the research park. For example, Client Logic, a computer company in the park, employs some 600 people. Thanks to this board and mayor, and especially to Alderman P.C. McLaurin, the minor decree was lifted so that future boards can select the very best candidate from within or from outside to fill vacant positions within the city workforce. An ongoing project that is dear to Carol's and my heart is the new park at Fire Station 1. This little park illustrates the spirit that Starkvillians have for remembering those who lost their lives in the September 11th tragedy, and for the love of a beautiful place to relax and enjoy family and friends. We look forward to its completion and use of this park by many. In closing, I am proud to be a Starkvillian and proud to have served my fellow citizens as an alderman and vice mayor. I leave the city asking for God's blessing on our city, its people, and our city family, which is composed of so many dedicated public servants. Thank you for your attention.
I knew that, excuse me, just a minute, please. I knew there was something I wanted to say, and I think that was it. And the only thing I would add to it is a word of thanks to Vice Mayor Davis for sitting in for me on the times when my health prohibited me from being here. So now I would like to ask you to join me in applause.
If I might add a couple of comments myself, and I concur with Alderman Davis, and I try to sit down today and put some things on paper that I might like to say, but there are no words that can express the feelings of an 18-year-old boy coming to Mississippi State University back in 1997 and then ending up as serving as the first student on the Board of Alderman in Starkville, Mississippi. The experience that I've had is one that, like I said, no words can put to it. The bonds that I've made. Coming to this office, I'll give a quick little story that I asked permission if I could share today. Some of you in the audience might know who J.B. Raines is, the late J.B. Raines. Soon after being elected, I was working as a student worker in enrollment services on campus, and he tracked me down by a telephone call. He was in a nursing home at the time, and which was kind of hard to track me down just because I was a student worker, not really stationed in one place. And I could barely understand him, but right then he started giving me a list of things that I needed to do, and I was like, oh my goodness, what have I gotten myself into with this person? And just an inquiry of hearing comments from people on the board, they said, you really ought to go spend some time down at the Starkville Library reading some old newspaper articles. So it was pretty interesting to find out who J.B. Raines was and to hear the old stories. The headlines of Starkville Daily's newspaper like Board of Alderman in 3-ring circus or City Hall in 3-ring circus. So I do feel that Starkville's come a long way as far as we at least get along now at the board meetings. And then soon after that, being picked up at a fraternity house in a smoke-filled car going to EMCC because I didn't really know where EMCC was or how to get there at the time. Knew it was near, but didn't know how to get there. And I was wondering, man, I have really gotten myself into something. Keep in mind, I'm about to turn 21-year-old guy at the time. The memories from this board, I'll always remember Dr. Zitto. We sat at MSU Bakery one time and discussed things in the city. I'll always remember that and take this away from him. Alderman Perkins, if I may label your speeches as sermons, that I call them. They're always well thought out of, and I actually got the pleasure of having one of them not too long ago, and I said a point of order to you just out of not knowing, but I apologize for that. But I appreciate you always setting this straight. Alderman Sumner Davis, when you got elected, I was like, oh man, this is awesome. Someone close to my age, he's going to see things the same way that I see them. Wasn't the case. He didn't represent the same type of people that I represented, so I always will respect you for upholding the people and respecting the people that you represent. Alderman Pollins, it's been a pleasure hearing your old railroad stories. I rode down to Biloxi with them one time, railroad stories right and left, and I always admire how you always look for the citizens, the people of Starkville that work for the city to make sure they're all treated equally and fairly. Alderman Davis, the passion that you have for this city, the passion that you have for the people of the city was something I always remember. T.C. McLaurin, yes, you've been wanting to take me under your wing to show me the way. When you leave this city with your briefcase, you are an expert on city government. You are a special asset to the city and will be a special asset in the next 4 years of this city. And the smoke-filled car comes from his cigarette days. Pre-heart attack that picked me up. Ms. Kirby, thank you for stepping in when we lost our city attorney, Ben Hillman, and for picking up where he left off and making sure that we always did things according to law, and your willingness to do what we asked you to do. When you were probably an attorney, had enough work to do before you took on the city's work. Ms. Marquita, I haven't got to know you long as a city clerk, but I've enjoyed sitting next to you the time that I've been here. I think that you will do a fabulous job in the city clerk's office, and just keep on these people when they don't want to give you what you want. Just keep on being hard-headed and tell them you've got to have it in the city clerk's office because it's a great office, and I will always miss this. Mayor, just as many other people at the board, we haven't always agreed on things, but I'll always respect you as a person. You've run the city in a great way in the past 8 years, and you're definitely proud for what you've done. Just the thing that I like to leave this Board of Aldermen, those that will be returning and those that will be coming into office. It's no secret that I represent a ward that includes 80% student. And I just will ask those that are returning and the new board that you will always treat students with the respect that you've treated me when they come before this board to ask for things. The 16,000 plus students out there, they're a vital part of this community, and they have a great passion for this community, as I've seen grow all the way from the Reeves administration to the Taylor administration and now the Cole administration. And I thank those students way back in 2001 for electing me to be their first student to serve on the Board of Alderman. I think we've made great strides, and I'm proud leaving today to see the city the way that it is. It's also sad, but if it wasn't sad, then that means that I shouldn't have been here doing this job for the past 4 years. So to the bonds that I've created over the last 4 years, the friends that I've made, you will still always be a friend. I look forward to meeting all of you on the sidewalk, wherever we may meet, and I look forward to becoming a citizen, a regular citizen of Starkville, as we call it. And again, I thank you all for the memories that you've given me, some that couldn't mention or couldn't think of at the time, but it's been an enjoyable past 4 years, and I look forward to the future of Starkville.
Mayor, if I might make a comment, that's two hard acts to follow. But I do thank the citizens of Starkville for electing me to serve the past 4 years as Alderman in Ward 5. It's been a privilege to work with Mayor Rutledge and this board. And I guess when we do things, we look back when they're over and we say, well, are we satisfied with what we did? I am. This board has done a lot of good things. We elected a best fire chief in the state of Mississippi, the best police chief, the best assistant police chief, also Mrs. Marquita Outlaw. We appointed her. And these are some accomplishments that, I think we made the right choice. Doug Devlin, that serves as the public works director. And I don't know how we could have asked for a better city attorney. I think I got one letter until she came on board. Now I have a whole suitcase. But it's been a privilege, and I just certainly wish the incoming board all the success. I think the table is set. Just take advantage of it. Never sell this city short. Thank you.
Mayor, I'm ready to pass my mantle to Jeanette South and get up to the next item on the agenda.
Is any other
With
board
left-handed
member
vote.
wish to make a comment? All right, we'll move forward then to public appearances. Dr. Diane Wall, I finally have located you, and I've been looking for you for the last couple of hours, but would you step up here, please?
Go ahead and take it.
Didn't mean to interrupt whatever else you had to say.
If I may, I'd like to read the letter that I have. The business is the Tibahaw County Humane Society and the new animal control facility. Dear Mayor Rutledge and Alderman, it is with great pleasure that Tibahaw County Society and shelter employees, and if we could have our shelter employees, our manager and animal attendant please stand. They're here to support this unit. Donates to the city of Starkville the approximately $230,000 new animal care facility built on city property at 510 Industrial Park Road. This facility has an increase in the number of dog runs from 8 to 18. It also has a more secure and isolated dog run for court cases. Cat room is more than double the size of the current one. For both dogs and cats, there now is an isolation area for new animals to be able to be determined whether they have contagious illness before placing them with the others. The addition of our surgery room on the premises enables the MSU veterinarian students the opportunity to perform spay-neuters at our facility rather than driving them to MSU. Our new office room provides greater space for performing adoptions. We are in the process of building a fence around the side and back of the building where the dog runs are located, which will provide a more secure socialization and exercise area for the dogs. We appreciate Mayor Rutledge, the current board, and the previous board's financial support and encouragement during this project. We will continue to campaign for donations to provide further improvements on this new building for the betterment of domestic cats and dogs and the community. Sincerely, Diane Wall, President. We await your acceptance of the facility through the legal papers.
All right, if you will, just make the board aware of the document you have, and our attorney may want to make a comment or two about it, and the board can act on that at this time.
This is a consideration.
Ms. Wall, if you would just let your board adopt that so that it be supported by board action, and then have executed and deliver it back to this board, it will signify the conveyance of the building. Of course, it's contained in a deed, but the land is already owned by the city, and that will effectuate the actual conveyance.
All right. So this is a quick claim deed which will convey the newly constructed building to the city, and I have difficulty finding words to express how grateful I am as mayor to see one of our facilities improve so immensely, to go from an embarrassment to a showplace. And we realize that you and many other people have sacrificed time and money and energy that could have been spent possibly more pleasurably, but not more profitably maybe. And we do thank you so much to you and to the Octavia County Humane Society for constructing this building, which will enable the city now and in the near future to provide the kind of care that we have the responsibility of providing for our animal friends. So once again, we say thank you.
Thank you. Our board meeting is Thursday.
Mr. Mayor and Board, before Dr. Wall leaves, it is appropriate that the city approve release of the final $10,000 of the $30,000 contribution that the city had been saving for this particular facility. You will recall some weeks ago, $20,000 having been released. I would now move that the final $10,000 be released to the Octavia County Humane Society to pay bills in connection with this facility being transferred to us.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. And that's so ordered. Thank you, Alderman McLaurin.
Before Ms. Wall leaves, I want to thank you on behalf of the board for the participation that the Humane Society has and still has and has agreed to in our new animal control ordinance, and seeing that dogs are registered and all the things that goes with that. And I certainly hope the best for that ordinance. So, keep up the good work.
I think we've sold about 130 licenses, and people are getting their paperwork together to be able to purchase them. So I say we have a good start on that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank
Win-win
you.
situation. Thank you. Let's give applause. We have, and I've been trying to test myself on pronunciation of this name, and I think I will not try it, to discuss the water bill problem. Dr.
Bosley? Yes, sir.
Bosley?
Yes, sir.
Well, that's not so hard. No problem, please.
It gets butchered a lot. Mr. Mayor, Board of Alderman, I promise I won't take up much of you guys' time, but I had a couple of issues with my water bill at my office down on University Drive. I talked briefly to Mr. McLaurin, and I had Mr. Box call me a few days ago and say that this is where I need to come to tell you guys about it. But I got my last month's water bill was, well, power and water, which they come together. I learned when I moved to Starkville, was $1,200, which is a substantial amount more than it usually is. And so of course I called to see what was, why my bill was so high. And the nice gentleman that I spoke with said that I had to pay my water bill in 4 months. And I said, well, I pay my bill every month, and went and pulled my safe. I said, no, I've been paying my bill. And so he put me on hold again and came back and said that actually my meter had not been checked in 5 months. So that's what it was. And when I started doing the calculations, that was still a tremendous amount more in 5 months than my water bill usually was. And he went back and started looking back last year, because that was the last time they checked my water meter, and said, yeah, it is a lot more output and that you must have a leak. So I went and lifted the lid on my meter, and there was water, gushing out around it. And so called back, and they've been really nice, but said he'd have to check on it. And they called me back and said that they could relieve or refund some of my sewer, but I'd have to talk to the city council as far as if anything could be done on my water. That's basically why I'm here. I just didn't know. I mean, I'd be glad to take an average of. I know that my water was roughly $500. I've got the bill, and even over an average, I think the highest my water bill ever was around $47 in 1 month's time. So that's still a good bit less than $500. So I just didn't know if anything could be done. I feel like if it had been checked, I think it's supposed to be checked every month, but I'm not sure. And I feel like I'd have probably caught that water leak if it would have been checked on a regular monthly basis. And so that's basically why I'm here.
Mr. Hathaway or Mr. Devlin, do either of you have a comment to make concerning this?
Mayor, Board, the meter had not been read in 5 months. It was meter readers in their cycle went through and checked the meter to be read. What I'm being told, and by the printout on the utility quarters that we have, it was showing that the water level was so high they couldn't read the meter. Now, for what it's worth, I've been told that when this first happened, that my lead meterman notified, quote unquote, a lady inside the office concerning the matter. But other than that, I'd have to agree with pretty much everything that the doctor said. Now, we followed standard procedure, and that was to adjust the sewage because it was not being treated at the plant. The leak was on his side of the meter. And that's all I can offer.
Mr. Hathaway, since I've been on this board since 1993, it's my recollection that it's always been long-standing policy of this board to ensure that any water and electricity that's consumed or that runs through the system, that the customer pays for that, and that we've adjusted sewer charges. So that's correct. So is it your recommendation that we support the action taken in that the sewer charge be adjusted, and that we require the customer to pay for the electricity and the water that has gone through the system?
Mr. Perkins, I'll do whatever the board's wishes are, but that is standard city policy. It's been that way ever since I'm aware of it.
Because I know there have been situations when we have bills this high over the years, and different citizens have come forward requesting similar adjustments, and we've consistently supported our long-standing policy. I just want to make sure that was still our policy.
Could you or Ms. Kirby comment on what our obligation is so far as reading the meter on a regular monthly basis?
Mr. Mayor, we do try to read every meter in Starkville unless there's obstructions or reasons that we are prohibited from reading that meter. Sometimes those are cars that are parked over the meter that we can't read, get to, or that a customer may have built an obstruction over it since the last time we were there, a month ago. Usually, if we are unable to read the meter, the customer is billed a minimum bill, and it's like $11 and some odd cents. But we do try to read everything in Starkville, every month.
I really can't add anything further.
So it does seem from one comment that was made that someone in the building may have been notified early on that there was a problem.
That's just what I was told. I cannot verify that 100%.
I was never, I mean, for what it's worth, I was never, made aware of that. That's my 2 cents on that.
Mr. Mayor and Board, it seems to me we've got actually a multitude of issues involved here. We talk about a meter that can't be read. We talk about meters that are supposed to be read monthly. Your bill says from this date to this date, from this reading to this reading. Apparently that is not necessarily correct. We talk about meters that are sitting in water. We talk about meters located on the property owner's side of the property. We haven't talked about the city specifying where meter boxes go and so forth. There were all sorts of issues involved in this. If the meter had been read, this may have been a tip-off that indeed there was some leak problem occurring that the property owner could have intended to, as opposed to coming up with this some 5-6 months later. There are all sorts of things involved here, which I think we really ought to do a little bit more investigation before we come up with just a implementation of what I would consider perhaps an outdated policy. I would move that we take this matter under advisement for some further investigation and a decision at a later time.
Second. Motion second, any discussion?
Mr. McLaurin, what further investigation that you were thinking of? What further are you?
For example, Alderman Perkins would like to know that when his meter box was installed, did the city tell him where to install it? And if the city told him where it was to be installed in the construction of the facility, then how can the city then turn around and say, well, that's on your side of the property, it's your problem because it's got water in it and can't be read? There are just all sorts of angles here, as far as I'm concerned.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to go ahead and support the motion to take it under advisement, but in the final analysis, I'm going to support our existing long-standing policy that the electricity and the water were consumed and used by the consumer. If it showed usage, then I'm going to support that the customer pays that bill, but I'm going to go ahead and support the motion that's pending. So I just wanted to share that, so I want to research this.
Was that a second, or did we already have a second?
Already had a second.
Yes, sir.
I hope the new members of the next board who are here will take note of this, because this is a thing that's been going on for years. You've got to stick with the policy, as Alderman Perkins has indicated, or else you run into a lot of problems, because you'll do favors all the time. If the leak is on the customer's side, then it's the customer's responsibility. It always has been, and if this one is on the customer's side, I hope that the customer will be willing to pay for that. It's something that I have to keep up. If I have a leak on my side, I've had to pay for it, and I've had that happen to me.
Could I say something?
Sure.
Is it a policy that it's supposed to be checked every month too? I just didn't know if that was policy or if that's something that
Yes,
just.
but if your meter box is full of water, it's very difficult to read that meter.
I understand.
I think that's what happened.
Yeah, I think if it was maybe made a little bit, instead of just telling, a letter, I don't know, something. And maybe, and I'm not saying that someone in my office wasn't told that, but it's never come to my attention.
It's unfortunate that you didn't get a letter right away that you've got a problem.
Yes, sir.
And that's where
Some policy may change.
some of our work effort in the city broke down, and I apologize for that.
Oh, yes, sir. It's not about $200 as much about, when I was told that, I think that, that's something that ought to be just looked at, more than anything, because I just think that's something that should be looked at a little further. If that's policy, you check it once a month, then, it should be, but
Any
thank you very much.
Well, I would would just say to Alderman Zilla's comment, surely you're not suggesting that it's the responsibility of every citizen to go out and check their meter box to be sure there's not standing water in it so it can be read by the meter person, especially when the box was placed at a certain spot at the instance of the city.
No, I'm not saying that, but if you get a 0 water consumption bill, then it ought to alert you that there's something wrong. And I would think citizens would take that responsibility, at least I know I would.
I guess I pay like 60 bills a month,
Sure.
unless it's, you know, if it's, when a dinger went off when it was $1,200, but, you know, $10, you know,
When it was 0, almost 0, it didn't go up.
no, just like my bill may have fluctuated $10,
Sure.
but, you know, that didn't ring a bell, it really didn't. And that's my fault for not reading that. I will from now on.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Marie Day, discuss drainage ditch adjacent to Tabor Street.
Yes, sir. We have a house that's right on the end of Tabor Street. And the drainage ditch, I haven't measured it, but it looks like 20 feet plus deep and water running in it all the time. And our house is about, well, I'd say 6 feet away from the ditch, or give or take a foot or two. And also it's washing the yard all the way around, and the ditch curves. And it's washing, we've had it fenced, and then it's washed out there, and then we've re-fenced in places, and it's washing out. And so we would like some help. You fixed the house across the street years ago, you put a big culvert in and smoothed it out. But then, just at their property line. So ours was left unfinished, or nothing done to it.
Miss Dave, where's Tabor Street?
Off of North Montgomery, but right across from Boardtown Village. There's a dead-end street there.
There is a huge drainage ditch that runs through that entire area, and in some places, as Dave says, it's covered, in other places it's exposed, and it is
This
deep.
is water running all the time. If a child fell in it, it'd die, it'd kill it, or drown.
Anybody have any comment? Board member?
We should look into it.
I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the public works director to look into it, come back to the board with the recommendations to fix it, not let it go. These drainage ditches are something we need to tend to. You know, it's our responsibility.
Second.
Well, I think Mr. Webb and Mr. Black both have been to look at it, so they can probably be more specific how deep it is than I am.
So we have a motion and a second to ask our public services director, is that what you, to respond to this situation.
I thank you.
Oh, excuse me, let me go ahead and take, all in favor say aye. Aye. I believe that's unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Day.
We'll start with a motion, Mayor.
All right,
Precinct two.
good. Start with a motion. Give us your name, please, sir.
I'm Patrick Gordy.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm here to present a proposal that is to provide safer bike lanes, or provide bike lanes on University Drive to make cycling on University Drive safer for the people who are already doing that. And I'm representing Starkville in Motion. And a little bit about Starkville in Motion. We're a group of concerned citizens, business owners, parents, business leaders, government leaders, and organizations that would like to see Starkville reach its full potential as a great community. And what we'd like to see happen is we'd like to create a system of bicycle and pedestrian paths in Starkville that would benefit the people who already cycle and walk, and then possibly encourage other people to do so because we have provided safety for them to do so. And what we're proposing is a trial run of a University Drive bike lane. And what we'd like to do is extend the bike lanes that Mississippi State University has to the downtown area of Starkville so that people can ride their bikes to the restaurants in the downtown area, the businesses, to their residences in a safe manner. And some of the benefits that we're looking at is increased safety for the cyclists who are already riding on the street there, and also for pedestrians, because right now we've got people who ride bicycles on the sidewalks, and we'd like to provide a safe place for them to do that on the street. We're also looking at improved visibility for entering and exiting traffic. By moving a few parking spaces around, this will make bicycling more safe, and in some places it'll make it safer for motorists as well. The other thing is that this complements Mississippi State's master plan. From what I understand, the university is trying to make the campus more biker-friendly and more walker-friendly. And what we're doing is basically extending this out to a community where a lot of students live, which is the Cotton District and the area along University Drive. And finally, we're also promoting healthy lifestyles here in our community. And this is a proposal of what this will look like. If you look, the only difference that we're throwing in here is providing 4.5 feet on the outside of the parking lane, or the 7 feet that's already allotted for parking. Providing a path that would be marked out for cyclists. And what we're doing is reducing the size of the lane that the traffic travels in from 14.5 feet to 10 feet. And here you get a better idea of what that would look like. So what you're doing is you're taking that 14.5 feet and reducing it to 10 feet for motorists and giving cyclists a 4.5 foot wide lane. And what we're talking about doing is a summer trial run, a 1-month trial period that we would like to do sometime this summer, possibly in July or August. And the reason we chose that month is because looking at a decreased number of motorists, because there's not as many students in town during the summer. And you're also looking at a climate that's conducive to cycling. It might be a little bit hot, but it's still a little bit better than some of the later months in the year. What we're looking at doing is painting temporary lines on the street to mark out that bike lane. And basically this will give us an opportunity to study the functionality of these bike lanes. And it also gives cyclists and residents and stakeholders who have businesses along that area an opportunity to evaluate this bike lane. There's some safety issues that we'd like to examine too, or there's some things that we'd like to do with this trial run. The first thing is to reduce the speed limit on University Drive to make it safer for cyclists. I think the current speed limit on University Drive is 30 miles per hour, and possibly reduce that to 20 or maybe even 25 or 20 miles per hour on University Drive to make it safer for cyclists who are already using University Drive as their street to ride on. We're looking at a reduction in parking, trying to clear up areas, driveways and intersections to where the visibility is better for motorists so that they can see a bicycle coming and be aware of cyclists on that street. What we've done is talk to pretty much every business owner or stakeholder on University Drive. I think we've talked to and received the approval and praise from probably about 90% of these people already. There's a few that we have not been able to get in touch with so far, but from what I've heard so far, we've got very positive feedback from the stakeholders. And this trial assessment, how would we determine the success? We're looking for stakeholders to view it as business as usual after the trial period or during the trial period. We'd like to see cyclists off the sidewalks, make it safer for pedestrians, and we'd like for cyclists to have a perception of safety when they do ride on University. And the way we would measure that is after 2 weeks and after 1 month, we would survey both the stakeholders and the cyclists to determine if we've achieved those goals that we have at the top there. And that's basically what we're looking at. This is not something that needs immediate approval, but we're trying to make the city and the board and mayor aware of this proposal.
Where does it end? Does it go all the way downtown?
It goes all the way to Montgomery Street,
Not past Montgomery?
not past Montgomery.
Could we go all the way downtown?
That's a question that,
We got diagonal parking.
I think that's the issue that we're looking at is the diagonal parking.
Did Mr. Kemp, Mayor-elect Kemp, not complain because he's always wanted diagonal parking on?
No, actually, he's on board with this.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Have you, has your committee visited with our police chief and city engineer as to, and I'm just wondering about the safety of 10 feet for cars and making sure that we have, let's say, the signage and the right speed limits and that type of stuff, to ensure safety.
One of the things we're doing this presentation for is to make people aware of this so that if there are concerns, they can be voiced. I know that, is his name Bill Webb? Yeah, I think he's aware of this project and he knows that what's happening.
Dr. Davis, Alderman Davis, I can answer some of those questions. We met with police chief and went over like just the reducing the speed limit and how he felt about being able to enforce it and everything. Then there came the issue with the fire chief about if there was ever an emergency and a fire truck has to go down there, it doesn't leave much room. And I think that what they're doing here is just kind of doing a presentation to maybe iron out some of those details, because as we were out there the other day measuring, found out that where we were measuring was not 43 feet wide. Is that
I
accurate?
think it was supposed to be 43, but it was 42.
Yeah, so there's a foot there shy, so some of that stuff needs to be looked at again, because we even had someone come by on their bike, which, as Patrick said, one of the things is right now they're riding the street with no markings whatsoever, so at what liability is the city there to not provide them a safe route, or does the city present themselves with more liability by putting a bike route there that's maybe not as safe as it needs to be? So that's some of the issues that kind of want to take a back step and look at.
Mr. Mayor and Board, it has been my pleasure, along with Alderman Lee Beck, to serve as members of this University Drive committee, taking a look at perhaps the trial a bike path along University Drive. The committee has worked hard, met numerous times, spent quite a number of hours in taking a look at this. There still remain, Alderman Davis, some safety questions, some liability questions, the cost of the trial, things of this sort. But we're hopeful that these things can be overcome. I would move that we take this proposal under advisement for a review of those items mentioned and hopefully toward resolution and a possible trial.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Any discussion? Are you ready to vote? All in favor say aye. Aye. Is that unanimous?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good presentation. We go now to Parks and Recreation. Nope. Oh, excuse me, thank you, Colin. Citizen involvement, maximum of 3 minutes for anyone to speak. Mr. Taylor.
It's good to have been in the city for four years and 6 months in Canada. I have enjoyed being, I have learned a lot, and it has been a pleasure. Leading to the mayor after this meeting, you probably won't have no more sleepless night. And so, Mr. Perkins and we are insensitive with you with the death of a family member. There's a couple of concerns that the people had. The noise ordinance. We're getting in the 4th of July is coming up, and we have other activities, and people just want to know what they are restricted to do. You probably have parties and stuff, and some people will abide by the law and some won't. Another concern of the people is that the other part of the street, Main Street, is getting very hazardous because we have plywood down, and next month will be a busy month, and people paying bills and stuff, and it would be very upsetting for them that they cannot get back and forth to where they need to go. Those concerns are still.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. We've learned a lot from you, too. Anyone else wish to speak? Anyone else? Parks and Recreation, I believe they do not have any items. Community Development now. Mrs. Webb.
My board have several items coming down from the planning and zoning department. First item, which I had several cases come up last meeting. First item would be they recommended approval of a request for special use exception at 200 Lindbergh Boulevard with the following conditions. This is at one time was built as a duplex. So the corner of Lindbergh and Scales, it was built as a duplex, and over the years they had taken a wall out and converted it into a single-family dwelling. And now they want to go back and put the wall back in and have it a duplex again. It still looks on the outside as it always has, which is a duplex. And they have to have the special use exception to allow that to happen. And the Planning Commission recommended approval of that request with the following conditions: that they meet the landscape requirements and that the renovation of the structure complies with the character of the neighborhood. That is their recommendation.
I move approval of this request.
Second. Motion second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. And it's unanimous, I believe.
Thank you. The second item was a request by Dex Unlimited for a rezone to a PUD of a lot off of, actually it's off of Gate Street and then comes back out on McKinley Street behind the old hospital. It is zone C2. They're requesting a PUD be allowed in that area to allow them to build houses, single-family housing. The Planning Commission was concerned about this particular request and recommended tabling it for 3 months and then have them bring it back for resubmittal. So
Was there an appeal by the?
Well, I was getting to that. That was their recommendation, and we have since had an appeal, but they want to appeal it to second meeting in July of that action.
Does that require public hearing?
It would, yes, sir.
All right, so a motion would be in order to set a public hearing for the second meeting in July to hear the appeal of this decision.
I would suggest that somebody who will be here at that particular time make the motion and the second.
Why? I would move that the second meeting in July be set for a hearing on the appeal of Dex Unlimited. And I assume the appeal is the tabling of, or the whole thing? It's the
Well,
appeal.
actually, he wants to appeal the tabling of it to have the board bring it off the table, act on his PUD requirement, request, and also a site plan review at the same time.
Wouldn't the planning and zoning meet again before that meeting?
Yeah, they're gonna bring a
Would there
site
not be
plan.
a chance that they bring it off the table at that meeting?
Well, they tabled it for 3 months,
Oh, that's right.
so there's always a chance they can bring it off, but
Yeah.
Under our ordinance, wouldn't planning and zoning have to approve that site plan before it got brought to us?
Site plan,
Yeah.
yes.
So they couldn't bring a site plan to us without taking it through.
under our normal procedure they would. I don't know whether the ordinance requires it, but yes.
This was a PUD application for rezoning only. It did not include the site plan information, is my understanding. So they would have to review the site plan also before that comes before this board. So this would be limited to an appeal of the tabling and/or failure to approve a PUD request.
We requested to tell them, but if we can't do that, he would, as I understand, would like to appeal the tabling of the PUD.
We specifically asked him that night if it was an application for rezoning or rezoning and site plan review, and I believe the applicant stated rezoning only. So I don't think he can ask for more in his appeal than he asked from the advisory board.
Okay. Well, that then would be what he was requesting.
We have a motion.
So
Yeah,
the motion is
wait
to
for a second.
set the meeting, the second meeting in July to hear the appeal of the table.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. I believe that's unanimous, and Mr. Webb, your office will make the necessary public announcement.
Yes, sir. The next item is a recommended rezoning or the zoning change from an R2 single-family duplex zone to a PUD planned unit development located on McKee Street. Mr. Crabtree have requested this change, and the planning commission recommends approval of the change to a PUD with no site plan. They'll have to come back to the planning commission with the proper site plan, but they did recommend rezoning to a PUD.
Move approval of this request.
Motion, we have a motion second. Any discussion? All
The
in favor?
rezoning only, not the site plan. Is that correct?
Correct.
You ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, I believe.
The next item, again, this actually is a recommended zoning of property at 700 Russell Street. This particular piece of property is owned by the university. They have a contract agreement with Ergon to sell that particular piece of property to them, contingent, I think, on this project going forward. Once we have letters from the representative of the university approving of this zoning, this particular piece of property, although it's been in the city for so many years, has never been zoned other than institutional because it belonged to the university. So Ergon is requesting that it be zoned a PUD, and the planning commission recommends approval of that, again, with them coming back at the next board meeting with a site plan review.
I move approval of this request of rezoning.
Second. Motion second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. I believe that's unanimous. Any questions for Mr. Webb?
Could you give us an update since we're talking about ditches on Maple Street ditch, please, Jim?
We were talking about PUDs.
Well, earlier.
We have got some information back from the engineering firm on the particular ditch. It was not what it didn't go the direction I wanted it to go, and I want him to investigate that before we make a final decision. And
We're gonna move with all, as quickly as possible.
as
on that.
quickly as possible. I tried to get up with him today, but I will find him tomorrow, and we will keep on it till we get.
Thank you very much.
I'll address this to Doug, I guess, since we're talking about drainage. Mr. Harden, I talked to Doug earlier tonight, Mrs. Harden called again about her ditch. Indication she is after she talked to Doug, she's somewhat satisfied. Her conversation with me Monday, it's hard for me to believe. I think the only thing that's gonna satisfy these people is the project be completed like we approved it. These people have lived with their lawn tore up for, I don't really know how long. And I apologize to her, and I apologize to everybody that I know to apologize to. I've been to the mayor, I've been to Doug, and I've talked to the contractor. It's hard that you talked to the contractor 6 weeks ago, and he promised her, I'll get it fixed within 2 or 3 weeks. If not, I will call you back. She never heard from him. But what I'm leading to is we award these quotes or contracts to developers or contractors, and nobody sees that they get done. It's somebody's responsibility. I've done all I can do as an auditor. I just, I don't know what else to do. And I think we need to look at this when we award these quotes or contracts. Don't give it to them and not have a time limit. If you don't finish it, if you're not having any intentions of completing the job, don't let them have it. They're undependable. And I certainly would, I know they're back working on it, and I would like to make a motion that if they're not completed with this drainage ditch by next Tuesday, there's no rain in the forecast. It's ample time to get it fixed. I'd like to make a motion to the board that we require him to finish it within 1 week, or we withdraw his contract. And that is a motion.
I would second that, but Doug, is he removing those cypress knees in that stitch, and he's got a contract treated? What was the plans? Because I'm not familiar with what the plans were. Can he finish it?
Yeah, we came up with a solution to that problem by using root control fabric after we get the roots out. But what Alderman Bowen is referring to is the delays that, have come about basically because of wet weather.
Right.
And Alderman Bowen, the city supplied the materials for that job, and really, in retrospect, probably we shouldn't have delivered those materials out there to that job site that close to the, start of the rainy season. We took a risk and we got burned.
Well, Doug, not disputing your word, but when you delivered the material and the machinery, he had ample time to complete the job. He just didn't do it.
Well, the thing is a lot of times when you call somebody up and you want something done like that, they've got other commitments they've made, and they just put you in line.
He certainly put us in line for probably 10 months. And I talked to him just before Memorial Day. Everything was perfect. All he had to do was a half a day's work and pour the concrete. He elected not to work on that project. He just did something else.
Who got this contract?
Hester Fence. And it's been a total disaster. And not only a disaster, but an embarrassment to me and to everybody that drives by. They see this yard totally torn up.
When I talked to Ms. Harden today, just about 4:30 this afternoon, and yesterday, the thing that she was really most irritated about was the materials that were, stored on her property, because she had some things she wanted to do in that little area. So what we decided to do this week is, by the end of the week, we're going to get all those materials off her property. Jimmy Dodd, who lives on the other side of the ditch, has agreed to allow us to, store materials on his side until we can, until it dries up enough to get the job. But I'm not trying to convince you to change your motion or anything.
Well, I'm not changing my motion, and what we're doing is moving material, and the job is not gonna be complete. It probably will, I don't know when you plan on doing the job.
Well, I've had,
I think we spent enough time, and listened to enough excuses. He has had ample time to complete the job. You cannot blame it on wet weather continuously.
Do we actually have a signed contract with him
No,
on
it's
this
just a
job?
purchase, it was a purchase order.
A purchase order type of thing, of course, this every contracts or purchase orders are terminated and he has damaged or disrupted the lady's yard, then there may be some
Well, I think,
considerations there.
I think we, and I'm not defending anybody here, but I've had my street superintendent go over there on a couple occasions, and he reported back to me it's still too wet for concrete. You know, of course, you know, when I get that kind of report, I'm hesitant to pour concrete in those kind of conditions because we're eventually gonna get this ditch put in, and this is all gonna be forgotten, but if that ditch falls apart 2 or 3 years, there's gonna be a lynch mob looking for somebody, it's gonna be me. Well, and, you know, just really don't wanna do that.
Is there condensate from air conditioning going down that ditch from the hospital and from those?
They say there's some kind of weepage coming out from the hospital, you know, their elevated parking lot.
Sure.
Yeah, there's continued, but we put a sump pump in the pit, and we're operating a submersible pump, trying to pump it around that ditch, try to get it to dry out quicker.
And a lot of the times they put that condensate from the air conditioning into those ditches.
Yeah.
By King Park, for example, that thing flows all year long.
Yeah.
Especially in the summertime, because condensate is going in it from the air conditioning, rather than going to the sewer lines. And this is clear as it can be.
I mean, you know, it's easy for us to sit up here and say it was dry enough to pour, but I can't back that claim up. And, you know, the reports from my superintendent have been, you know, we really don't need to pour that concrete when it's still wet like this.
Sure.
Well, I made my decision based on, you know, putting in a good ditch and not really trying to rush things up.
Well, if it wasn't dry enough, you had a backhoe down in the bottom of the ditch digging, and it was perfectly dry. You put the sump pump, rerouted the water, it was totally dry, and he just didn't want to do it. And when it's, you know, I can't understand us sitting up here and worried about a contractor that accepts a bid for a job, and then when I get ready, I'll fix it.
Mayor, I'm going to withdraw my second. I know Mr. Hester quite well, and there must be some reason why he has not done, based upon the recommendation of Public Works Director indication. I'm going to withdraw my second.
So we would need a second then to this motion to pursue the discussion.
The only thing I can say to Dr. Duda, there is a reason. He is the reason. He just has not wanted to complete the job because he has other things lined up. And like I've told this board before, when he wants to get the money from the city, he'll go complete this ditch. And I've known for 2 instances, and I told him, all you gotta do is pour it. But, and like again, he told Mrs. Harden, he said, I'll be there. If I don't get the ditch fixed, I will call you. Reliability, he didn't even call.
Mr. Dillon, how long do you plan to get this done?
Mr. Bowen or Mr.
Mr. Dillon,
4 years? Well, I think it was been approved sometime, I don't really remember, we'd have to look on the minutes for detail, but it's probably 8 months ago.
Well, to give you the background, it was actually approved by the board to expend money in July of last year. And Mr. Webb was working with, I forget who it was, Schaefer's Architects, to try to design an interface from the hospital into that ditch we're about to put in. There's some talk about maybe them putting in a retention pond and that type of thing. So anyway, the project was up in engineering at that point. And it was about, I forget, it was a board meeting in December. And we already had quotes, we already had quotes at the board meeting in December that I've gotten the go-ahead from Bill is just go ahead and do it, as is. And I think it was, I think it might have been the
first or second board meeting in December. And that's when we issued the purchase order, got the quote approved, and we delivered the materials, put the equipment there, you know, just to get a head start on it, and then, you know, before we got over there, ran it. So that's, you know, that's kind of the background. It's just one of those unfortunate things, and you know, I wish it hadn't happened that way. You know, I apologize to you, and I apologize to Ms. Harden today for the aggravation she had to put through.
I still say this drainage ditch can be fixed this week. If we move all that material over into Mr. Dodd's yard and fix her yard the way she wants it, when we get ready to pour the concrete, you can't pour it on Dodd.
I told her we're still gonna have to come through her yard to,
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to second this motion. The reason I'm going to second this motion, I'm going to give deference to my colleague from Ward 5. He has apparently been very emphatically trying to get this project moving. Of course, I don't have a lot of history and background, but these contractors must be very cognizant and aware that once they do accept bids or contracts or city work orders, that they need to move with due diligence and recognize that we are an important customer, and we have a duty to the taxpayers to ensure fully that we have the work done in a very timely manner. So it seems like that this began July of 2004, and it's been more than a reasonable time. So with that being said, I'm going to second my colleague's motion from Ward 5.
All right, we have a motion second.
Mr. Mayor, Board, I certainly have no objection to the motion as stated. Ms. Kirby, again, off the cuff, what liability, if any, exists if we have issued a purchase order to a vendor? Has he disrupted the lady's yard? Has he? There is no disruption.
It's just normal construction type disruption.
Well, that
But
can
it just
be,
went
that
out
can
to
be
the-
terrible.
Oh,
Normal construction type of
Yeah.
disruption, as you put it.
I would say, I don't know, I'm not a contractor, I don't know how many yards of gravel is sitting in their yard and how many square footage of sod that's probably gonna have to need to be replaced. But,
Let me rephrase my question. If his, if the order, the work order to him is rescinded, if he doesn't complete it within a week, and there is some damage of some sort under this normal construction stuff to the lady's yard, is he still obligated to repair that?
Yes, sir.
It doesn't just fall to the city?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? So the deadline is 1 week from today, which would be the 28th. If you approve this motion. Are you ready to vote? All in favor, would you raise your hand, please? 3, 6, opposed, 1. So the motion passes 6-1.
There had to be a 6-1 vote tonight, I think.
Probably not the
No
last of
balance.
Dr. Zell tonight.
Okay, Mr. Ball, I'll let Charlie know tomorrow. I appreciate that. Thank you for your patience. I know this has been hard on you, as it has on me. The first item on the agenda, before we made any amendments, was we had hoped to, before this, the expiration of this term of the board, to get our contracts with water associations that we sell water to executed before the next board came in, because it's a whole new process of re-educating everybody. As you recall, not long before the first board meeting in this month, we had made extensive changes in the requirements of these water associations in regard to them requiring that anybody who wants to hook up to them come to the city and get a building permit and be required to meet certain building codes, and then also any commercial properties to meet certain ordinances, like our landscape ordinance, sign ordinance, that kind of thing. We circulated those draft contracts to the water associations week before last,
I was out of town, a few of them called Bill, and they seemed to be kind of okay with it, but last night I was asked to attend a board meeting of one of the water associations, and just kind of explain to them and educate them on why we're doing this, and really how it's kind of a win-win. They benefit from it as much as we do if we annex in the future. They called back today and requested that we wait until they have their annual membership meeting in the first part of August to allow the membership to at least have some input before we execute those contracts. And I think we should honor this request because it's important going forward that we have good relationships with these associations. And there's a lot of things we're going to have to work together on, and I think if we can just give them the courtesy of at least having some membership input, I think it's going to help us down the road. So, with that being said, I don't know if we have to make a motion or anything, but I'd just like to drop that for tonight.
I don't think it requires any action.
Okay.
I would really recommend that we think in terms of 4 years, because it would coincide with board.
Okay.
And that's just an observation.
Okay. Now we'll get to the amendments. The first item is, we touched on this one earlier, and Mr. Perkins, I appreciate you letting Chief and I come
Yes,
up and
yes,
kind of clarify some things on that.
Yes.
And, my intention in no way was to scuttle anything they were trying to do, and I'm just glad we had some clarity on that. But eventually, once we got a good understanding of what we were trying to accomplish, then we started looking at some things that my department does, and there may be others that are affected as well, that we require these employees to pay for out of pocket to maintain certain licenses and certifications. In my area, something that's come up as far as commercial driver's license back towards the beginning of the year, on all renewals from this point forward requires a physical exam from a doctor. Our medical insurance carrier, Blue Cross Blue Shield, pays a portion of that exam, and then there's a copay that the employee has to pay. So my request tonight is your approval that going forward that we can reimburse employees for their copay for these medical exams that they're required to take for their commercial driver's licenses.
I will so move.
I'd second.
Motion second, any discussion?
Now, do they pay for the commercial driver's license also when they get it?
Yeah, there's a fee, but
Do we pick it up?
well, no, because they've got to have a license anyway to drive a car, and that's something they've been paying all along.
Okay.
So yeah, I talked to Mr. Young about that, and he felt it would be best to just extend this benefit and not open up a can of worms with the others. So.
All right.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous, I believe.
Thank you. The next item, of course, I didn't have time, I wasn't here Friday, and didn't put this in your packets, but there should be an inter-office correspondence at your seat that's titled Salary Adjustment Request for City Employees Unfavorably Affected by Higher Dates when Service Time System implemented on 10/103. I'll just go ahead and speak to this memo if that's okay. First of all, I want to take this opportunity to express my thanks to this board for doing some things since I've been here that have really been beneficial to me. One of them is extending out and showing our employees that y'all care about us. You're willing to do what it takes to keep the morale high, and high morale is critical to any organization. I mean, you can't have a productive organization. You can't have an organization that has top-notch customer service without good morale, and that putting us on the anniversary step increase system on October 1st, plus the increases that you gave us this fiscal year, at the beginning of this fiscal year, in a very difficult budget period.
are very much appreciated as well. But I'm happy to say that this is paying back. We're getting a dividend out of that, and I'll go into that later. My request tonight is for one final action by the board that relates to starting the service time step increase program on a particular finite date. And I can best illustrate this with an example. Some of y'all know this, but this anniversary or service time step increase works like this. You get a 1-step or 3% automatic increase after 3, 6, 10, 15, 20, and 25 years of service. Now, when this was implemented on October 1st of 2003, there are certain people that just because of their higher dates just had some inequities put out in regard to this. And the example I'll give you is we have an employee named Derek Brandley who he works in the street department, and he completed 6 years of service on 10/10/03, right after we put it in, and received a 3% increase. And then he'll get another one on October 10th, 2007. Okay? Now we've got another employee down at the wastewater treatment plant named Gary Ward, who completed 20 years of service on September 20th of 2003, which was 10 days prior to when we started it. So in this case, 20-year employee needs to wait, another 5 years before he gets his first one, and then a 6-year employee is going to get two steps of increase before he gets his. And my quest tonight is just if you would consider to make whole these good employees who, for no other reason than bad luck in their hire dates, were missed out. I request your consideration and approval of salary adjustments for all city employees, and I'm not just talking about my department, I'm talking about all that are affected in the same way, who were placed on the service time step increase system for the first time on October 1st, 2003 as follows. If you look on the next page, you'll see a schedule. And this applies to all current employees who have completed a minimum of 3 years of continuous service as of October 1st, 2003. And they're proposed as follows. As of October 1st, 2003, if you had to wait 4 to 5 years for your first step in grade increase, we would grant a 3% wage adjustment. Those who have to wait 3 to 4 years, 2%, 2 to 3 years, 1%, and 0 to 2 years, 0%. And if you'll flip over to the next sheet, one thing that's always a concern is how we're going to pay for something like this. In our department, since I've been here, all the divisions is when people leave, attrition or retiring or whatever, we get together and see if we can find a way to get the same amount of work done without rehiring somebody. And in other words, try to get the same amount of work done with less people. And subsequently, we've created a lot of vacancies in public services that we don't intend to fill until it's absolutely necessary. If you look at the general fund category, what I've done is I've extrapolated out our payroll expenses through the end of the year and compared that to the budgeted amount. And if we continue on this pace, we'll generate a savings of about $134,000 in payroll-related expenses. And if you look to the right of there, we'll have 10 employees affected by this plan, and the cost is only $4,200. So it's really, not financially, devastating to do this, and I think it sends a message to these affected employees that, hey, we want to make sure, we make you whole, get you started on the same step as they do. And one thing I will say too is if there are any other departments that we want to do this for who are having budget difficulties by doing this, I would love to make some amendments to take some of this savings and move it over to their departments if necessary.
I would move approval of this request for both the general fund, the water sewer enterprise, and also the sanitation enterprise fund. And
So-
the amounts so listed.
Second.
Well, what, Mr. McLaurin, you may remember, what other city departments were placed on this for the first time?
Well, it was all the city departments that were not currently on.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'll have to go back and check on that as it applied to some of these, but all consider your motion is for the public services divisions, I assume.
Right.
Okay. Others will have to justify that if they are able, should it occur. And, Bowman, you seconded that.
Second.
So this applies only to public services department.
Yes.
I would, right, I would call for the question.
All right, you've heard the presentation and the motion and second. Call for the question. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have yet other items?
Mr. Mayor, excuse me, and as a corollary to that, we will need then to take a look at remaining departments to see what is affected, how, at what cost, all these things we do not have answers for tonight.
Well, my request was to give it to those departments too, and take some of my budget and transfer it.
I understand, and that certainly is a laudable goal, but
How does this relate to the fact that we have our budget amendment number 2 scheduled for tonight? Is it permissible to have yet another budget amendment if necessary?
yes, within this term, yes. We're trying to get these things tended to so that the new administration will be able to do the adjustment allowed by law.
Vote, right? Any other items, Mr. Devlin?
Well, before I leave the table, a lot of this has already been said about y'all from each other and other people. I just want to really thank all of y'all for really working with me and supporting me. And I think we've accomplished a lot in public services in the last couple of years. And we couldn't have done it without your support and help. And I just appreciate so much all the support you've given me over these past couple of years. Mr. Boland, Lee, Frank, Dick, I hope this is not goodbye, but until we meet again. So, you know, don't make yourself a stranger, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Doug, I
Mr. Mayor.
certainly appreciate those words. And forgive me if I have been hard on you. I know at times I have.
Hard territory.
But I hope we'll all be back.
Oh, great. Okay. Great. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just to follow up something Mr. Devlin said, that I want to make sure that the point is not lost. He has, during his time here with the city, consistently worked to not fill vacant positions if the work could be absorbed by others within the department, has worked conscientiously to do things of that sort, not just fill a position because it exists, but try to see if you can do the work and save the money. And he is to be commended for his work in that regard.
Dave, I estimate that we are about half finished with our meeting tonight. And someone over here want to make a comment?
No,
We have to have a break.
I declare a 5-minute break. I have 7:10. Let's be back ready to do business at 7:15.
Told y'all it would be.
Wait, does that take care of you? Yes. All right, thank you. Attorney Kirby, I took the liberty of including Hendricks Road right-of-way donations at this particular point. And I think you and Mr. Webb have had an opportunity to look at the file in its current state concerning the preparation that has been made for right-of-way donations for Hendricks Road. Would you care to make any, give us any update on that?
Yes, sir, I'll be glad to. My only unreported matter is on Hendricks Road. I have been in discussions the last several days with Attorney John Moore, who represents those individuals. He is going to finalize the warranty deed to convey the roadway to provide to the city. There's already a right-of-way deed. He happened to have in his possession a survey done by Mr. Goodman, which would be the legal description. The city did not have a legal description. And I talked with him and confirmed again today that he will quarterback having that done, circulated among all of the landowners. He's done the title work, and they will present it to the city.
All right, thank you.
We'd like to get back in line.
All right. You've had a second thought?
You mean the two of you?
We're gonna double team y'all. What did you say, a 25% vote?
That's right. We come before y'all tonight, you take your, as leaders of public safety in the community. And it has been a pleasure to work with all of you. I cannot think of a police chief or fire chief that has been more blessed to have people that would work with us, listen to what we needed, understand our needs, and support us. Because of that, we have one of the finest fire departments, did I really say that?
I appreciate it.
And one of the best police departments in the state of Mississippi. And we could not have done it without y'all. And our personnel owe you as we owe you, and your support has led to their safety and equipment and so many other ways, and support and knowing that you care. Your turn, Bubba.
I just want to say, I want you to recall 4 years ago, we were sitting on a letter that, from the rating bureau that said, we no longer warrant a Class 5 rating. And through y'all's support of equipment, turnout gear, and training and that sort of thing, we are now a solid Class 5 and working very close to a Class 4, which very well could happen in the next 4 years. So I too want to say I appreciate your support for the fire department, because we've made great strides in the last 4 years.
It's been unbelievably wonderful. I mean, just the police, we've replaced all our radios this fire. That saves lives. We were having blackouts where people couldn't talk to each other in certain parts of town, couldn't communicate during a fire, couldn't communicate during a shooting situation. Y'all solved all that. We're short on staff. We all know that. The police got a take-home fleet, and it's helped us not add 10 officers to the force. And in addition to that, it's let us have the ability to respond. New rank structures, we could go on and on. But y'all have done a great service for public safety and the citizens of the community. We just want to tell you thank you.
Chief, finally, a minute ago when I made my comments, I said we had the best fire chief in the state of Mississippi. We have the best police chief in the state of Mississippi also.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I agree.
Before y'all leave, Chief Rankin, I've got one question for you. Appreciate y'all's comments, but as we work to this before, how many water mains stay within a window?
We 25% raise. We haven't blown a water main in over 2 years.
Okay.
Water hammer.
Okay.
Thank y'all. Mr. Mayor, and appreciate the sage advice of the city. Good done.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Very briefly, I see some of my constituents from Hendricks Road are still here. Ms. Kirby, would you be so kind to follow back up with Mr. John Stewart Moore, so we try to have that deed here for our first meeting, if possible. If he's got all the signatures, so go ahead and accept that deed so the road can become a part of the city. Mr. Hendrick, you all did understand that Ms. Kirby, our municipal attorney, has requested for him to prepare a warranty deed. That is a deed that we're required to have accepted by the city before we can accept your road into the city. So he is preparing that deed for us, just a certain legal requirement that had been earlier communicated to him, but he had not gotten that to us. So we're going to try to have that deed in. Ms. Kirby is going to be, she's going to continuously contact him and ask him if he try to have that to the mayor's office prior to the next meeting. If he does have that with the required signatures, we can just go through the procedural format and just accepting the deed, so the road will come into the city. So we won't take any further action on that tonight, so I'll follow through on that with the attorney, and hopefully you will likewise do it with your attorney, Mr. Moore, so we try to get the deed here to the city, okay? Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank you, sir.
I believe we were going to consider a matter of certain minutes at this point in the meeting. So what is the pleasure of the board concerning these minutes that are yet pending?
My recommendation is we approve them with any corrections that need to be made. And I would so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
My standard comment, Mayor, about reluctance to approve minutes that we have not read. One says subject to corrections. We have not approved the corrections either, so the board may do whatever it wishes.
Ms. Kirby, there is no requirement that this board approve these minutes in Maxine County Board.
The statute's silent on that.
It's always best for how this board take care of its own business. We don't need to leave that to the next board. You know, we have two options. Like I say, the hour's getting late. Let's either adopt the motion or come back on June the 30th. One of those two things. Whichever one you want to do is fine with me. If we've got a motion on the floor, you want to defeat it, let's come back on the 30th. Whichever one. Ready to move on. We've got a motion second.
Any more discussion? All in favor, would you raise your hand, please? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? 1, 2, 3. So the motion passes, and those minutes will be prepared and examined, and any alderman who chooses to do so, as well as myself, have an opportunity to make any necessary recommendations concerning changes or corrections. Of course, we include the attorney as well. All right, we request approval of the additions to the claims docket. Madam Clerk, do you have any comment for us on that subject?
I verified with the accounts payable that the policies and procedures set forth by the city has been performed, and I do recommend that we approve the claims docket, the addition to the claims docket.
Based upon recommendation, city clerk, move approval of additions to claims docket.
Second.
Motion is second, in discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. And so ordered. We'll hear from our budget chairman, Alderman McLaurin, concerning request for approval of budget amendment number 2.
Mr. Mayor and Board, you received in your packets for review over the last several days the second major amendment to the city's budget proposed for fiscal year 2004-2005. This amendment is routine in nature, increasing certain categories and accounts in the general fund to reflect, for example, grants and differing amounts of grants received in certain projects and certain categories, and to reflect expenditure changes in the various departments and units funded by the general fund to properly bring their accounts into conformance with the audit and accounting guide of the State Department of Audit. The one, and then of course on the second, third page, similar things with the enterprise funds and so forth. All of this from a city perspective is routine. I would call your attention to one item. You will see in the general fund revenue a transfer in, it says rehab loan. This, of course, is balance of a federal programs account of long standing that has been transferred to the general fund to allow completion of other projects downtown, being one of those. The rest of the movement of funds is to reflect actual compared to projected and is routine, and I would move that budget amendment number 2 be approved.
Second.
Motion and second.
Was this prepared by Ms. Accountant Debbie Clark?
Yes,
Okay.
in part.
Good. All right.
Any other questions, any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no, and it is unanimous. All right, we move to this discussion of swimming pool ordinance. Is anyone prepared to make any recommendation to the board tonight concerning this matter?
Mr. Mayor, again, this was an item that I had presented on the agenda several weeks ago based upon some citizen concerns relative to safety. You will recall at a recent meeting hearing comments relative to both sides of the coin, the fact that every public policy decision has certain very legitimate arguments and a discussion on both sides. I would recommend that we collect together a committee of those citizens that have expressed interest, and I outlined all the names at the meeting last time in the swimming pool matter, to make a recommendation to the planning commission and the city at a later date, and I would so move.
Motion is second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that's unanimous, I believe. The next item has to do with a matter of some considerable age. And that is, it turns out that the Community Development Block Grant that we received with regard to service zone has not been closed out until now. Ms. Benson is in the process of submitting the closeout documents. We have not been billed for the administrative services, and I assure you, this is one in which we received far more than $20,000 in services. But we are requested to approve this $20,000 bill for administrative services, and that would be totally reimbursable through the grant.
Move approval.
Got a motion and second, any discussion? All in favor, would you raise your hand? It's unanimous, thank you. You have before you the amendment to the drinking water loan offer, and this is the same document that we've actually approved twice previously, and as is customary, once a final bid is received, then the document is amended to reflect the contract amount. So I would request approval of this amendment to the drinking water system loan offer.
I would move approval, Mr. Mayor. I believe it's an increase of $203,000, if I remember.
That's right.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion?
The only thing is that he needs to spell Dr. Shindala's name right in the cover letter, but that's okay.
All right. Any discussion? Maybe you should, can you tell us something, Mr. Webb, about the difference in amount? It seems like a somewhat unusual amount.
Yes, sir, the increase in the bid amount was due in part to the increased price of steel, and also there was some added piping that was done to get it into the mainstream of our, we had to do more piping to get it to the main city water main than we had in the past. And the original estimate was based on, of course, lower steel prices and the fact that these other two wells had already had the piping to them. Tanks had the piping to them.
All right, you ready to vote on this? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I believe that's unanimous. All right. We have a request from the band boosters concerning purchase of an advertisement.
Mayor, I move approval of the purchase of a half-page advertisement done last year to advertise the resources and benefits of the city of Starkville in their band booster football program.
Have a motion second, any discussion? All in
I was just gonna say sufficient funds remain in the donations account to do this.
All in favor say aye. Aye. I believe that's unanimous.
Mayor, I move approval for Mr. Tony Rook, Ms. Deborah Wood, Donna Self, and Tanya Little to attend the municipal court clerk summer program July 10th to July 13th, any necessary travel advance if may be needed.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. That's unanimous. I believe item 8 was deleted, and we have item 9, proposed city flag, and I would ask Ward 5 Alderman Virgil Bowling to speak to that proposal.
Thank you, Mayor. Some time ago, we formed a committee of several people to try to design a flag for the city of Starkville. And with several months of debating and trial and error with the assistance of the mayor and Al Quinn, I think he was about ready to pull what hair he has out. We came up with a design that's in your packet. It's been in there since Friday, and also the example that's here on the board, on the wall, rather. I think it's very good. Everybody I've talked to seemed to be appreciative of it. A lot of thought went into it. A lot of people worked on it very hard, and I think it's something that would be nice for the city of Starkville to have. I don't know, evidently I've never had a city flag. And I would move that we adopt this flag as the official flag of the city of Starkville.
Second. Have a motion second, any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I'm not going to support this motion tonight. Of course, I'm sure we probably need a city flag, but of course, we have a United States flag and a Mississippi flag that we are giving patriotism and honor to. This is my first time seeing this layout. I didn't know what it was when I first saw it in my packet. I just knew it was a picture of a Mississippi map and a magnolia flower. It says City of Starkville, founded 1837, home Mississippi State University. You know, certainly, I guess being an attorney professional, I just have a certain way of going about doing things. I always like to get all the information that I can. I try to get all the public input that I can, all of the necessary information that I can. I don't know what citizens have had in input. This is my first time hearing about this. This may have come up sometime 2 years ago. I know that there was any study committee going on. But about against the city flag, of course, I'm not aware of any public hearing and so forth, and this just sprung up on us all of a sudden tonight. And of course, I like to see more information, but I want the record to be clear in case of those who are reporting it from the media and otherwise. Sometimes things are not reported just like it should be, but I just want to make sure that that we just need to have more public input, more information, and I'm not satisfied with what I see. I like to see more information. I like to know how who was the origin of this, what's the history behind it, and I just like to have more of the totality of the facts and the circumstances. So, and of course, and I don't want to try to get just educated and brief in this very short setting here. And so, given all those collective comments, I'm going to respectfully dissent. Certainly, I have no objection in looking at a city flag on down the road, but just to support this motion was just suddenly made. And this information is saw it pinned on the wall. I didn't know what it was in my packet. I didn't see any information, any recommendation from a committee. I didn't know who the committee consisted of. But let me just go on record again and say that I must dissent to the motion, and given the lack of the things I just cited, I'm going to vote against it.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor, this is something that we came back one time from the MML conference and everyone having flags down there, and we thought it would be good for the city of Starkville to put one together, but like Alderman Perkins was saying, I don't know who, this might be great, but I think this is something that, citywide needs to have an involvement in and what it goes on the city flag, because this is something that hopefully we would have for for as long as someone comes up and says, no, we don't like this flag or something. But I would like to see some more input go into the decision of what a city flag looks like. And, you know, there's several members here, the newly elected board, and it's pledged it's something they do work on, because if they go down to the MML conference, they'll see that there are several cities our size that have flags, and it kind of makes you sitting there, and you're like, man, you know, we're a city larger than some of these other cities, and we don't even have a flag that represents Starkville. So I would have hoped that maybe the new board would take this under their, something they take up and take a look at it.
Mr. Mayor, with that being said, I offer a motion to table this motion.
Second.
We have a motion to table the motion concerning the flag. I'm not sure whether that accepts, not debatable. We'll talk that. Is this to table indefinitely?
Oh, yes, sir.
All right, motion to table indefinitely. All in favor, would you raise your hand, please? I see 3, 4, 5. Opposed? I see 1.
I'm neutral.
Alderman Frank Davis is not voting. All right, well,
Mayor, one other comment I'd like to have. There's been a lot of committees formed and nobody knew until it was put on the agenda. And, you know, like Mr. Perkins said a while ago, we need to vote on this. We don't need to wait on another board. And that's the way the Board of Alderman feel, that's fine. Apologize to the mayor and Al Quinn and to those others that have worked on this flag. They've worked real hard, put a lot of thought into it, a lot of discussion. So that being said, I have no further comment.
well, I do want to say you certainly do not owe any apology to me, and I also feel that it should be noted that the board did, about 2 years ago, authorize a committee, and a great deal of discussion and recommendations went into some proposals that were made at that time, and the time ran out for this committee to act and fulfill its mission. So I'm certainly sympathetic with Alderman Boland in his effort to bring something which I believe is quite well representative of the city of Starkville. But I'm sorry the board didn't see fit to give it any further consideration tonight. Thank you, sir. We have request authorization to reject bids received for substation monitoring and control equipment. Request permission to advertise. Mr. Hathaway, would you give us just a word or two of explanation concerning that, please?
Our bids that we received on this equipment, out of budget, and so what we want to be able to do is go back and relook at a lot of things and see about modifying and resubmit for bid.
And then you recommend authorization to accept the low bid for Highway 12 feeder circuit. That low bid being from Southern Electric Corporation of Mississippi, $394,516. The one other bid was from B&B Electrical and Utility Contractors, $542,308. So this bid is acceptable and within budget?
Yes.
All right. So the recommendation is that we accept the low bid of Southern Electric Corporation of Mississippi and Flow.
I move approval, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I believe that's unanimous.
Did we do the rejection of the bids?
I believe we did not.
I would move then that we reject the bids received for the substation monitoring and control equipment and re-advertise for new bids.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We have hiring. One recommended hiring is the police staff support technician level 2. There were 2 applicants that passed the typing test. Those 2 were interviewed Chief Lindley, Outlaw, Lieutenant Troy Outlaw, Captain Gerald Davis, Sergeant Bill Lott. Interviewed the two applicants and recommend Melody Dewberry, at a starting salary of $23,376.63, 1 year probationary period.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. I believe that's unanimous.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that this board move into closed session and turn the need to go into executive session for this last time.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We thank you all for your presence here tonight. And we will reconvene, could conceivably take action upon reconvening.